I just learned something, like, or maybe this is your fourth thing, as you were describing, you knew your tools. So you knew what your drone could or couldn't do, and then you knew how you could or couldn't mount the camera in order to get the shot. And those would be the things that, like, when you see a shot, you would have to figure out how that shot was done, right?
Yeah.
If somebody said, "Oh, I want a shot like that or similar to that," and you're like, "Oh, they must have done that with like the DJI Ronin setup, or they use the free fly camera." I mean, like
Yeah.
like it seems like that's your tools, you
Yeah. I
understand
mean,
your tools.
I spend a lot of time absorbing content produced by FPV drones. So for that specific reason, so I can see exactly how other people are creating, how people are pushing the boundaries, and I try and study films where they use FPV, so I can see how it's being integrated into a story, so I can better understand that. So that's like my challenge side of like, okay, let's see if I can figure out exactly how they did it. And on the other side of things, I spend probably equally amount of time talking to people who are creating new solutions, designing my own solutions. I build every single. Actually, this is the only drone I haven't built, and I've actually rebuilt it. So I got this for Christmas like a long time ago from my parents,
Right.
um, and I've had to rebuild it. But this is the only drone that I ever received that was already built. Everything else I built from scratch. So I fully
Really?
understand. Yeah, I understand
Really?
every single component, what it does, why it does what it does, and the effects it can create.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
that's that's mind-boggling, actually. That's very cool because then you could repair it, you could fix it wherever you are. Like,
Yeah.
I did a job where they were shooting uh, they were shooting a soccer player, and this is all test.
Hmm.
The real pro wasn't there, and they kicked the ball, and it literally hit the fucking drone. Like it hit the drone goes down, and then there was no concern on the two drone pilots. There was no concern from them because they just fixed it, and they just like, okay, we're ready to go. Like 10 minutes later, I thought it'd be a disaster because I've been on
Yeah.
jobs where drones have broken and they couldn't get them working, and then you can't shoot if it doesn't work.
Yeah, so that happens a lot with DJI drones because DJI drones are impossible to fix. But when it comes to FPV, you bring backups of backups of backups of everything.
Right.
So for this trip to Iceland, I'm bringing 8 drones. So it's like
Wow.
2 drones for every single sort of situation or camera platform. And then
Right.
I'll be bringing replacement parts for every single one of my drones, whether it's propellers, motors, screws, electronics, video, camera, everything. Because for that specific situation, if I go and I'm trying to fly the Ember and in travel or whatever, a wire got ripped
Right.
or whatever may happen, I can fix it in, 5 minutes maximum. And
So
there's an art to that because when you're doing a lot of traveling like I do, like I was just in Samoa and then I do stuff in the States and then Iceland, you can't carry everything. I mean,
right.
here, I'll show you a little bit my setup here. I have like walls of parts and it's kind of a mess right
Oh,
now because I'm in the middle of
oh
building a bunch of
shit!
stuff.
Wow,
But I have
that's
boxes and boxes of
yeah.
tiny little components, screws, like every little thing, and you can't bring it all. So
Right.
I've actually gone through and designed every single drone so they're modular and they're using as many of the same components as possible.
Damn. I mean, that's like that's number five. Like you're also a mechanic, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's so important because it's just like, eh, first of all, you're for a guy your age at 23 years old, you're a pro. Like you have that professional viewpoint, and understanding your tools. Like an artist has to understand his paintbrushes, his paint. Like that's what we all have to do.
Yeah.
And I could see great things for you, like in the future with this attitude and this viewpoint. Like, where do you see yourself going? What are your ambitions now that you've got what you've got underneath your belt?
Yeah, so I have two main ambitions. I have a personal ambition and a group ambition. So,
Hmm.
on a personal level, of course, I'd love to go and film the coolest stuff that happens on this planet. So, movies, yeah, But more than that, I want to be the guy who you call when you want to film. Let's say it's an ad for, I don't know, like even like the U.S. Navy, right? They have the coolest ads ever. Have you seen the ads for the
Right.
U.S. Navy? Yeah,
Yes.
they do
All
the
that
craziest
fighting.
stuff ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to be called to go film a fighter jet. Like how cool would that be?
Wow.
Or base jumping, or what do they call it? The halo dives, right? Like you could film that with a drone. Yeah,
Wow.
you could film it with another guy like on a camera, sure. But like, so on a personal level, I want to go film the coolest stuff. I want to film the top of all sports. I want to go film crazy movies with pyrotechnics and all this amazing stuff. Like the Mission Impossible would have been amazing to go film. As he's jumping off this massive cliff. I mean, having an FPV drone right behind him would be amazing. That's a
Wow.
personal level. Like on a personal level, I just care about being at the top of an industry as a creative. I'm not really worried about like I want to make $1 million from filming sports. Like
Right.
yeah, but that's more on the group side. So then on the group side, what I really would like to do is get to a very high level as a drone pilot, and then be able to train and develop a team of drone pilots, and then expand from there. So right now I'm
Wow.
just doing drone because that's the first thing that I stumbled upon. But I love mainly the reason I do drones is because I love creatives and I love engineering.
Wow.
So I would love to get into Steadicam, get into um, cable cam, get into like arm cars. They also make like RC cars that you can
Yeah.
mount gimbals and cameras to.
Yeah.
So then that's kind of my long term play is building up a company that you just anytime you're like, I don't know how in the world are we going to capture this insane scene, you call me.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because a lot of the jobs that I work on in television and movies, I get called in for like, I don't know, the visual effects work, but I'll also get called in for a lot of like stunt work and car work, and it's always these like electric cars and these cool rigs, and then how do you actually do it? Like have confidence that somebody could control that camera, whether it's an arm car, it's an electric car, whether it's an RV, any of these things is like having that confidence. And your background is like, it sounds like you're just gonna like actually make it, because like I would want to work with you. I would want to be able to take your vision and like be able to bring, because my whole goal and what I do is right now is to help people technologically create.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so use technology to help people create. Now, I
Right.
also have my own ideas, like this show. This is an idea. This is just something, if I could have done this 30 years ago, maybe this is all I would be doing. But 30 years
Right.
ago, it just wasn't the same. It wasn't accessible. Now, you're in Florida, I'm in New York. This is a lot more accessible. So
Mm-hmm.
building up one's dreams, like even me, like I'm a pro at what I do, and I still dream, just because maybe I'm older, and I still dream, and meeting people like you and talking to people like you, it energizes me, because I have a company where we're capable of producing a lot of products, meaning getting the equipment out there, getting it rented, training people. That's what we do. I mean, it's very similar in the sense of what you're looking at. You're just looking at a totally different area of high end stuff. And there's a company here in New Jersey called Monster Remotes. You should look them up. And they're the crane company. They also
Mm-hmm.
do drone work, but they're the crane company, and they have such a niche, and they've grown so big. I mean, it's like they have 30 trucks now. I mean,
Wow.
and because they know how to deliver what it is. And what's going to happen is your areas, because of it's small, it doesn't require a lot. It's going to continue to grow, and people are going to need people like you who have this incredible viewpoint and understanding, and have
Right.
an aesthetic viewpoint, and because I was thinking that also, like, you're going to Iceland, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm sure drones don't fly as well in cold weather, or batteries don't last as long. Like, there's got to be
Yeah.
other challenges, like with weather, because as soon as
Oh
it's
yeah.
windy, oh, you can't shoot, or or like what are those barriers? Like I'll just take you in a different direction now because
Hmm.
I wanted to ask it earlier, and then we got into this whole tech thing, and I love that. Like the way you described it, I was like, oh, you're over here, you're wearing that hat as the master mechanic of building your own drones, so you know
Hmm.
what you can expect out of them, and now you go out as an artist, and you're flying these drones for people who are probably going to get shots that they never could have gotten before because number one, you could tell them they can or can't do it. That's
Yeah.
important, right? So if you
Yeah.
can't do something, but weather, I've been on many jobs where they couldn't fly drones because of weather, and they couldn't get the camera to settle because it was windy. So the beginning of a shot was like it was too shaky, And yes, now you can stabilize things, and I understand that. But how does weather have an impact or temperature or anything like that on what you're doing?
Yeah, so there's I have like meticulous steps to take before even taking off on set. And one of the
Right.
things is you check weather. What that entails is temperature, wind, speed, and direction. Something called KP index. I don't know if you know what that is. I didn't even know
I
it
have no
until I learned
idea.
about it. I'll explain it. And then humidity. So
Okay.
temperature at warmer temperatures, the air is thinner, so you technically have less efficiency. And once you get to really, really hot temperatures, like you're out in the desert and it's like 110 degrees, your batteries don't perform very well, and it's very thin air. And depending on the rigs, you can even have props explode from it being too hot.
Wow.
Obviously, you have overheating issues and all these things that you have to consider. On the other extreme, if it's too cold, when it's really, really cold, the air is much denser, but your batteries perform worse because it's cold. And generally, when you find yourself in an area that's really cold, you're at high altitudes, and generally it's more windy. That's been my experience. I filmed in Montana during the winter, and it was 35 mile an hour, 35 mile an hour winds, negative 15 degrees. And usually a
Wow.
drone that I can fly for 6.5 minutes, I was flying for a minute and a half. Because I was like, I mean, the drone was literally at this angle to stay straight,
Oh my
just to
gosh.
hover in place because of how strong the winds are. So that's one thing to consider is their temperature. That's how it affects it. Obviously, anywhere in the middle, it's like perfect. Like the best situation temperature-wise for drones is like in the 50s, 60s. At that point, nothing really overheats, unless you're like really dumb about it. But nothing really overheats. Your batteries are performing great. The air is decently dense, and the at that temperature, generally you have calm winds. Obviously, it depends where you are, but at those temperatures, if you like, it's pretty calm. So that's
Right.
the perfect scene. Next to that is wind. So that all depends on what kind of shots you're trying to get. So if you're trying to do like a really smooth, slow shot approaching something or whatever it is, and the subjects are close to you, then wind's going to affect it a lot. Because if you have gusts and it's very like intermittent and it's very just like boom, 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 then your drone you're going to have to constantly adjust, and that's just not going to be doable at a close proximity,
Wow.
especially going slow.
Right.
When you're going really fast, like let's say you're chasing a car or a plane, it's less noticeable because you're already going so fast that at that point you just have to adjust this much to be able to adjust against the wind because you're already going 95 miles an hour and you're already putting so much power behind it that's pretty stable. Obviously, that also depends on the size of the drone. So I have this little guy that is the
Wow.
size of my palm. And I use this when I'm flying. I really use this mainly for my own like fun, but I've used it on set. And it carries a naked GoPro, which is this. This is a Hero 11 that I cut open and put into a separate case so that it weighs a lot less. And this won't do very well in wind because it's so light.
Right.
I mean, this we're talking about like 200 grams with a battery. So a gust of wind will just chuck it.
Wow.
But when you have something like this, which is closer to like 5 pounds, it's not going to be tossed around as much in the wind.
Wow.
So those are the variables. It depends what you're shooting and where you're shooting with. It's doable. Like I said, I have successfully filmed in 40-mile-an-hour gusts. That's because I was filming a reveal. There was a mountain going behind it, and then shooting off the mountain, and then revealing the other mountains. So nothing really in tight proximity to see the small adjustments. I mean, you'll see it if you don't stabilize it. You'll see it a little bit in the horizon, but it's so far away that it's not as noticeable that the drone itself is bouncing, right?
Right. Right.
So you're talking like I'm filming something that's a mile and a half away. If I'm bouncing like this, like physically this much, you're not going to see it. But if I'm filming something that's maybe, I don't know, 20 feet, 10 feet away, you'll see that a lot more. So it's doable, but it's all variables. You know, just like trying to figure out your ISO and your your iris and your lighting. I'm sure there's situations where people are like, oh, that's impossible to do, but then someone's going to come in and figure it out and tell you what is possible to do in that situation. So that's your wind. Then we consider KP index, which is basically the electromagnetic activity on the Earth, which will affect the precision of your GPS. So GPS, we don't use it a lot in FPV, but it is used as a crutch.
Right.
In case you lose signal or something happens, you can hit your button, and it's like your last-ditch effort because it's not very reliable. But you can hit that button, and it should be able to recover itself and fly back to your general direction. We also use it a lot for pointing us home if we're flying like really long missions. You know, going up, 2 kilometers up to the top of a mountain. You turn around, you can't see yourself. So we use these GPSs to tell us where we took off from, and various other things like speed, altitude. So you have to consider that.
Wow. You have to be.
I may be talking too much. If I'm talking too much, you let me know.
No,
'Cause
no,
I'll
it's
just go around.
fantastic. I mean, see, the thing that I love about things is when it's thought through, and that's how you become a master of something, is when you understand all the elements of what it is that you're doing. Like if I'm on a
Yeah.
set, I'm listening, like I know the director wants playback, so I hit the button, boom, it's there, and I make
Yeah.
them happy because I understand all the elements that come into doing my job. And your job is it's very complex. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a simple job. You build your own drones. Now you have to understand the whole subject of like where you are on terrain and deal with weather. You also have to now know that you can hit a button and it'll bring it back to you. But like how do you get such great range in stuff like out of it? Like how could you see that far when you're doing a shot that's 2 kilometers away? Like that's far. Like
Well,
that's not close.
that's what this system's for. So that's the beauty of FPV is when I put on these goggles, I see out the camera in the front of the drone. So that little camera in the front, I see
Right?
out of that camera.
Okay.
So whether I'm 10 feet in front of my physical body or 2 kilometers in front of my physical body, my vision is on that drone. As far as range,
Right.
sorry,
But how
go
does
ahead.
it get it to you? How does it get it to you? That I mean, that's like
Okay, I'll.
mind-boggling.
So you have this camera. It picks up the image. You have in here something that's called a VTX, which is a video transmitter, and then you have your antennas. And then this has antennas, and it picks it up. What it does is it's operating on 5.8 gigahertz, and it's operating at 1200 milliwatts, and we're only seeing between 720p and 1080p, very low bit rate,
Right.
and I guess our frame rate is between 60 and 90, depending on the settings you choose. So that ends up resulting in a pretty strong link. I know like Teradeks and stuff, they're not that strong. I don't know why. I don't know if their power is low or if because they're trying to transmit 4K, so they're not going to reach that far with 4K.
Right.
I'm not entirely sure, but our system, like this system, has been flown to like 80 kilometers.
What?
Yeah, so it's a guy who's standing at the top of a mountain, flying at
Okay.
like super high elevation
Oh,
with nothing in the way.
got it.
But
Got it. Got it.
yeah, but it has been done. Um,
But that's
yeah,
another
so
thing you need to know. Like you this is like if you sat down and you wrote up all the things that you would need to know, like you'd have to teach each one, like to all the drone operators that you want to train in the future. Like you'd have to
yeah,
break it
so
down into each thing because each thing is important. And and you can't the creative side, that's see that's another thing. That's its own thing, because you could have a
yeah,
mechanical guy, you could have a guy who can get it up in the air, but he doesn't, he's not talented visually,
yeah.
talented.
That's
You can't train that.
so I've developed processes and checklists for all the mechanical sides of things. I have a
Wow.
70-step checklist to build a drone, and I have a 25-step checklist to take off. Just taking off on
Really?
set. It's a 25-step checklist.
Wow.
Um, and then there's like an additional 10 steps that you have to do prior to even considering pulling out the drone, which is checking all the weather, checking all these parameters, checking safety, and all these different things. So I've developed these processes so that I can keep
Right.
myself in check. But I have no clue how in the world I will teach someone to be creative because I wasn't
Right.
taught. It was something I developed,
Right.
and I don't know if it's teachable.
Well, I think you did say it earlier though. You watch, you look, you look, you watch, you're seeing what people can do and what they've done. And then if you
Yeah.
mirror that, because this is the thing I've learned about creativity too, is if you mirror what has already been done and you do a good job of it, then you could start stepping out a little bit on your own, because
Yeah,
you're
totally.
doing something that's great. But this underlying elements that you just brought up, like your checklists and things like that, that's invaluable because then anybody could understand the technological aspects of it and what they need to do in order to be successful. Doesn't mean that they are, and
Yeah.
that's incredibly valuable. Like as soon as you said that to me, I was like, oh, you know what? I love marketing. Oh, well, there you go. There's your your 70 steps to successful getting ready to fly a drone. I mean, and or your giveaway of like three, Andre's, 3 steps to, get into drone piloting, whatever it is, like the
Yeah.
marketing's a big thing, right?
Yeah,
So,
totally.
so that's a whole other world that we can discuss and talk about. But that's what the visual presentation comes in, is because most of it's part of either selling something or promoting something or getting an idea out there.
Yeah.